Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this new webinar. Today, it's going to be about design system adoption best practices. Before starting, I'm just going to do some housekeeping slides to go through just before jumping into our panel. First, if you haven't yet, join our Zero Slack community. So it's zeroheight.com/Slack, but we can also send you a link to join this this community. It's great if you want to follow up with questions after the webinar, or if you just want to keep the conversation going. During the webinar, if you need any assistance, please send a message in the chat to Connie. She will be happy to help you and assist you with any question or issues that you may face during the webinar. One question that we have a lot is, do we record the webinar? And the answer is yes. This is recorded, so don't worry. You can watch it later. You can share it with your colleagues later. We will send you an email with a recording right after the webinar. If you need to enable the captions, unfortunately, the demo platform that we are using doesn't offer a caption feature. However, what we can suggest to you is to use a web captioner to display some caption. And if you do, please make sure to unplug your headphones because the web captioner will need to listen to your computer's sound to be able to display the caption. And finally, don't be a jerk. We have a code of conduct, and we just want, this webinar to be respectful for everyone and to be caring. So I'm sure that everyone here is nice and respectful, but I feel like it's always a good thing to remind. A few upcoming events that we have by the end of this year. We have a lot of other webinars. So the first one is on 21st November. It will be another Design System Beyond the Button webinar hosted by my colleague, Michelle Shin. And this one will be focused about who use the design system, who are the users of the design system. And the next day, on the 22nd November, there will be another Design System WTF webinar hosted by Luc and Michelle. This one will be about accessibility. And if you try to attend the previous one where we had technical issues, this is the one that has been rescheduled. So this one should be all good this time. And at the end of the month, on the 30th of November, we will have the Design System Award ceremony. Which is related to this webinar that we have today, because we have the chance to have all the finalists from the best adoption category with us today. And at the end of the month, so we will celebrate the design system community, and we will reward the winners from this unique competition. And another webinar will be on the 12th of December, and it will be with other finalists from this competition, from the best governance category. And it will be about design system governance best practices, where our speakers will share their experiences about governance with the design system. Last thing before we jump into our speakers is about our third edition of How We Document that we just launched. So if you haven't seen yet, I strongly, invite you to have a look and take the survey. It is one of the most rich and interesting survey about the documentation of your design system. And the more people are taking the survey, the more accurate and rich the result will be. We will share the result early next year. I really, invite you and suggest you to take this survey, because it's really important for the community and of the design system. So let's talk about our speakers today. So we have I have the chance to have today with me all the finalists from the best adoption category of the Design System Awards competition. I have with me Sheena from WISE, who is a senior program manager, Johan from IFS as a principal UX designer, Benjamin from Outdoorsy, who's a lead product designer, and Brenda at MGM Resorts International as a lead designer on the Disney system. Maybe, Sheena, you want to start to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I am Sheena, and I'm based in our Budapest office. I work with WISE. WISE launched in 2011 to make international transfers cheap, simple, and fair. And now we've got an international account that helps millions of people worldwide manage their money. We have a design team of a bit over 80 people at WISE, and we've got over 90 product teams.
Great. Thank you, Sheena. Johan, you want to follow?
Yeah, let me continue. Johan, I work at IFS. Yeah, IFS is as an enterprise, huge company. I'm not really used to that. I'm used to smaller places like this. But yeah, I've been here for like 3 years now, and it's a lovely place, to be honest. Located in Sweden, some parts, the R&D section at least, and also many good colleagues down in Sri Lanka, Colombo. But it's a big company. It's 5,000 colleagues, something like that. But it's a fairly small design system team, only about 20, and the core team is something like 3 or something like that. Yeah, and it's an ERP system that we are delivering, and yeah, it's super glad to be here.
And we're super glad to have you too. Brenda, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Brenda. I am a lead designer in Vega, which is the name of our design system here at MGM Resorts. MGM Resorts, if you know, it's a gaming and entertainment company that has over 30 hotels and casinos in its portfolio, mainly within the US, but it also has international presence in China and Japan. About Vega, our design system, the team is formed by about 20 people, including product designers, content, motion design, product managers, and engineers. And we are a relatively new design system. The initial team was formed and Vega was launched all within the last year and a half. We adopted from the beginning like a centralized model, and we support like over 20 digital products for both native and web platforms. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the invite, and I'm really looking forward to dive into our topic today.
Great. And finally, Benjamin.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Ben Richard. I'm a lead product designer at Outdoorsy. Outdoorsy is a small startup in Austin, Texas. Outdoorsy is an online marketplace where you can rent an RV or a cabin or a tent and really immerse yourself in the nature. We pride ourselves on getting outdoors and making memories out there. Our design system is called Bonfire, and we created that in spring of 2022. So it's about 1.5 years old. And our design system powers a lot of our product teams and other teams in our company. It touches email, social marketing, branding, and many of our product teams as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I have a starter question for everyone. It's about the adoption strategy approach that you had with your design system. And so I was curious to know more about when you considered your design system's adoption strategy. What was the most important thing for your team to consider? Maybe Joan, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, I mean, we started from scratch, to be honest. It was about 3 years ago, and it came from a it's a company that's been doing the code base was more or less like 15 years old. So when we started the design system for like 3 years ago, we had to start from scratch, and it wasn't not just we had to. It was essentially about. I'm losing my point now. Yeah, okay. It was yeah. Can somebody go before me? I'm losing
sure. Yeah. No worries.
Sorry. Yeah. No worries. I'm losing my track now. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I can go.
Yeah. Can you go? Yeah.
So yeah. So the most important thing I think at MGM for us was definitely collaboration. When we started, we were a very small team that was taking on a huge effort, which is the design system. So we knew that we needed support, and that kind of led to us to start collaborating very early with the product designers that were crafting the actual experiences for guests. And I remember we did a lot of working sessions where we would design a component together, make decisions together. We involve them in the review process and in the testing of components. And I believe all those things fostered a sense of ownership and partnership that made the adoption smoother in the long run. And I can say like so much that some of the designers that we collaborated with early, and not only designers but also engineers and other stakeholders, are to this day our best allies and biggest advocates of the system. So that's amazing.
It's cool. Very interesting.
I think
Should I try again?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Sorry for losing my
That's
pace.
fine.
All right. Yeah, we started for about 3 years ago, and we didn't have anything at all. It was a huge code depth, and all the designers were pretty junior at the same time. So one of the biggest things we were focusing on was actually to create like a safe place for everybody. It was really, really important in many ways. So building from zero, to be honest, and starting from scratch, and being like, don't forcing it at all with the principles or anything. Like really starting with the basics and getting everybody on board. And I mean, we started by also just doing education about what is a design system. That was the main thing, and also introducing Figma and stuff, because it was nothing at all from the beginning. We didn't have anything to build upon, just a huge code depth that we was trying to get some sense of.
Yeah, I feel like it's all in the end when you're trying to build a design system. It's more about it's also building the design culture at your organization. That's what's part of the adoption, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if maybe Sheena or Ben, you want to take.
Yeah, I can hop in. I think certainly what Brenda said made a lot of sense. I think collaboration is super important. The way that we approached increasing adoption of our design system was maybe a little bit different from the way that other people here have, and that's because I know we've got a couple of people listening who like WISE, or as we used to be called, TransferWise, and we did a visual refresh this year, which is just a fancy way of saying we did a rebrand. And so we set that rebrand, the launch date for that, as a hard date to get the adoption of the design system as high as we could. And we framed it as, if you adopt the design system, you will get that rebrand for free. Otherwise, you're going to have to redesign all of your screens. And so that meant that because we had a hard deadline, we needed to be really, really tight on collaboration and communication. We had 50 more than 50 product facing teams who we needed to come on the journey with us. And in an organization where all of the teams work autonomously and they decide what they work on at any one time, you really need to collaborate closely to get them on board. You need to communicate well with them, and you need to quickly identify where they're being blocked and how you can unblock them. So I think collaboration is what really got us over the line and made a massive difference. And again, just to second what Brenda said, because it was really important, is that's how you build advocates for your system. That's how you get people on board, just working really closely with them.
Yeah, fully agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, you want to conclude on this question?
Yeah, really great points shared so far. At Outdoorsy, for us, the adoption strategy really started with just commitment and buy-in from everybody in the organization. Starting at leadership, that level needed to really confirm that this is something that we wanted to do as a company, because a lot of time and resources were going to be dedicated by our product teams to make this design system really work and be successful. So big risks were taken, essentially, and that meant forming a small and mighty team to be like 100% dedicated and engaged. And since we are a small company, we had to hire externally for some of the roles, but also shift around some roles of our existing team members in our company to really form that team to just be dedicated to creating this design system from the ground up. That also meant going all in on like a redesign of one of our stronger product features, which is our host tooling. So we chose to redesign that whole entire product using our design system as the foundation. So that really just committed us to making this design system and then using it immediately for a brand new redesign of a product. So there was no room for let's hope we finish it this year or let's hope everyone uses it. We really just built the team and built the product while using this design system.
Cool. And I guess another question that could be interesting to follow with this topic is about the challenge the adoption faced for you. What were some adoption challenges that you faced and that you didn't expect, and how you did overcome them?
Yeah, I can continue.
Yeah, sure.
We decided to use design tokens in our design system, which I think is somewhat of an optional thing when building a design system. It proved to be a great challenge, but definitely a worthwhile one. So we had to implement some new design to dev processes with like detailed documentation, new naming conventions, installing some Figma plugins to like really get everything all connected. So these are things we haven't like really done before with any kind of our internal tools, but it was all for the greater goal of just creating design consistency and reusable patterns is really the power of design tokens. And that really meant that our components could be like boiled down to its smallest attribute, like a weight of a stroke or the color of an error message or the corner radius of a card. Those are like reusable values that we could spread across all of our components where need be. So we facilitated like a bunch of training sessions internally to make sure that everyone was familiar with this this new way of building our design system and making sure we're all proficient using those tokens. So collaborative learning was really just a key to building confidence and competence with design tokens and the design system overall.
Cool. Brenda, you want maybe to share some? Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good question because we had all types of challenges when we started, but I would say the one that I definitely didn't expect to happen was that the excitement that was created around Vega before launching officially, and also because of our collaborative approach, it kind of led to other teams to start attempting to use the system too early and before we reached a stable point. And it was very clear that the team was eager to use the system when we were not ready yet. So we had to learn to manage that pressure by, like stay within the plan. But in this case, communication was really important. We had to make sure that we were over communicating with all stakeholders and being very transparent of our processes and our progress and our timelines.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I feel like it's all about, in the end, people, and not so much about, technical things or tools. It's always the people behind who are important when it comes to adoption and design system in general. Maybe Joanne, you had something to add?
Yeah, I can just it might be in line with what Benjamin just said, that tokens was a big thing for us as well. It was like the artifacts that everybody could settle upon, because it was the maturity of the different designers was quite different. I mean, we had quite a extensive. Most of us were quite junior, to be honest. So the tokens was really important for us as well, to build that foundation so that everybody can understand. And it was actually the first principles we launched as well. So it was colors, fonts, and the big five most. It was icons as well and stuff like that. And that was the foundation stuff that we could that we had, so that we can understand each other from the beginning. So design tokens has been a big thing for us as well.
I'm not surprised. And I feel like when you are, building a design system, there's like this huge question about measurement. And you can measure a lot of things actually with your design system. But as today we are really focusing on adoption, I would like to ask you how you measured the success of your design system adoption, and if you maybe had some qualitative or quantitative methods in place to measure this. I'd be curious, maybe Sheena, to know more about how you did that, Wise.
Yeah, so again, a lot of the way that we did things ahead of the release of the rebrand was very much tied into that, because we had this point in time, we had this one date that, it was a hard deadline, and we don't usually work to hard deadlines at Wise. So one of the things we did to understand the adoption was we worked with senior designers and design directors and asked them to do an audit of their parts of the product. So we democratized the work. And so they all ran workshops where they went through the spaces that their team of designers owned and figured out where the design system was being used and where it wasn't. And anywhere it wasn't being used, we then had a resultant set of tickets for teams to implement, which were all actioned ahead of the brand refresh, which was really useful. So I'm sure there's pieces that slipped through the net, but we aimed for full adoption, at least in customer facing spaces. So there's still some stuff internally that we need to work on, but certainly with what our customers see, we had full adoption. It's a big thing to organize, and if you can get people on board and say, democratize out that work, narrow it down to a smaller focus and say, we need your help with this. This is how we want to understand it. I think it is possible to understand adoption. We are still looking at the technical challenges of how you do that in code.
Okay, thanks. Does anyone else has experiences or maybe best practices about measuring adoption that they would like to share?
I mean, that's a tricky one, to be honest.
Yeah.
We are still struggling with that as well. I mean, for me, who's talking to a lot of designers, I mean, the stakeholders has one thing. I mean, the return on investment is one thing as well. We need to deliver in the end and stuff like that. But adoption, I mean, just talking about teams and colleagues and stuff like that. I mean, we are conducting regular interviews, and we have been like what we call an UX guild, for example, where we regularly talk about updates, what they prefer, is this understandable, stuff like that, and those really simple dialogues has been a tremendous help for us to understand and to get that pulse and understand what the users need. But we are trying to measure things like inserts in Figma and all, how many teams and stuff like that. But it's difficult to really to really read and see exactly what that means. But we're not there yet, but we're trying. We're struggling, I would say. But
just to add to that, I think like what Johan says is a very fair point, because what I'm talking about is measuring it at a specific point in time. Like if you need to do it regularly, there's like it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I mean surveys and dialogues in both quantitative and qualitative research is a tremendous help. But I mean, nothing beats a good talk, to be honest, and try to do that regularly. We do that every week, more or less, with different contexts. Yeah,
qualitative feedback and communication is super important to just measure. Even hearing from an engineer that, I think I was able to do my work faster because of the design system, or I could get to a decision quicker because of something we have in place is great measurement alone.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I think one of the main challenge that design system need to still keep working on. I'm also curious about the impact that your design system adoption got in your organization, and especially in terms of collaboration and communication. How has your adoption approach affected collaboration and communication within your organization? Brenda, maybe you want to take this one.
Yeah. I think having a shared language overall changes the way that we communicate and how we work together. We have been able to maintain to this day, like I said, we have been with Vega for a year and a half, and we have been able to maintain our collaborative environment. I feel that our design reviews are more efficient. Like you can tell that we are on the same page. Everyone knows what's happening. I think we've also grown closer together as a team, and we have developed a deeper understanding and empathy within the design team and across other teams. And I feel Vega specifically has acted as this bridge between multiple teams, and it has enabled better ways to collaborate. And at the end, that is reflected in the higher quality experiences of our guests.
Cool. I don't know if maybe Ben or Sheena, you have other thoughts to share about collaboration.
Yeah, Brendan made a great point about just a shared language. I don't know if you guys work in remote environments, but having a shared language that you can have across multiple time zones and in different teams is really a huge win. It just really makes communication and collaboration way easier. So I feel like the adoption of our design system has definitely benefited from that in particular, but also just collaborating in new ways too. We've tried using shared spreadsheets for like component tracking and status updates, weekly meetings, of course, but also Slack channels and email chains to just really keep everyone up to date, and having a different purpose for each one too, making sure the topics within them are really refined in what you expect. Using new tools too. Design system, I'm sure everyone's got a new tool they're using, whether it's Figma, whether it's zeroheight is a great tool. But using those new tools and learning those together, I think has just really brought us closer, and using similar tools to complete the project.
Cool. Maybe one last question before we jump to the audience question, and it's a question that maybe I would like maybe everyone could answer. It's more like your final thoughts about this topic. Like, what will be, you know, one piece of advice that you can give to our audience about, I mean, what's one piece of advice that you can give to our audience who might, you know, be struggling with their design system adoption?
I can start there.
Yeah.
I mean, we have mentioned it a couple of times now. Exactly, it's about keeping that dialogue going and understanding and talking to each other. I mean, we didn't even have designers who was working at IFS for like 3 years ago. So from my point, it's the dialogue in between just designers and developers has been a huge win just to have that. But I mean, and that's the design system. The design system has been that glue to actually that language that Benjamin was talking about as well. But I mean, adoption takes time. It's and don't have too high expectations in that sense. In our case, I couldn't even imagine how long time it takes to do like really small things. So be nice to yourself. That's my thing.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah.
I think for me, I'd probably say like communication is the most important thing you can do. Like talk to the teams around you. If they're struggling to adopt the design system, go and talk to them, figure out the reasons why, see what's happening and help unblock them. Talk to the designers around you. They're going to be the people who evangelize your system, tell them why they should use it, show them how to use it. Nobody here would build a product without understanding the needs of their customers. And when you build a design system, the teams around you and your designers are your customers. Talk to them always, and don't stop talking to them.
Good one.
Ben, you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to use the phrase "fake it till you make it" in some way, because creating a design system is a massive effort, and it won't happen overnight, and you probably won't get it right the first time either. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't over-obsess for it to be perfect. I think our team decided early on that our design system was naturally going to have some challenges, and we committed to just understanding that it's going to evolve over time like any product does. So I think just having that stance really reframed roadblocks that came along as just collaborative opportunities rather than like setbacks. So when issues emerged, we just treated them as a way to collective problem solve. And when we did figure out the problem too, we just celebrated that process of, hey, we did it. We solved one problem, let's move on to the next. And our design system is stronger because of it. So just really embracing that.
Great. Brenda?
My advice would be to go back to the basics, like Sheena just said it, that remember the most important piece in the puzzle are the users of your system. So you have to connect with them. You have to invest time understanding their needs and struggles as best as you can, and the answers will be right there. Also, another thing to say is that there's not a recipe for successful adoption. Like every team is different. And another thing would be that it is okay to make mistakes. Like John said, be nice to yourself. It's okay to reconsider decisions if things are not working, and just keep approaching the challenges with curiosity and empathy.
Awesome. So we're gonna take some question from the audience now, and the first one we have it's a hot one. It's about measurement and adoption KPIs. It's a question from Gerard. Gerard says, adoption seems to be one of the most valued KPIs for design system teams, but it is often vaguely defined and loosely tracked. So I'd love to understand first how your teams define adoption, and then what metrics do you look for to measure your adoption progress? I think maybe we already, started to answer, but it could be interesting to get deeper on this topic.
It's an interesting one because I think it's one that everybody struggles with. So I've kind of talked a bit about how we kind of measured that adoption. What I might talk about just really briefly is something that we've used to measure success that isn't a measure of adoption, and that is QX scoring. So QX scoring is a score that quantifies attitudes and behaviors into one scale. So it takes both into account. And so we used, again, the brand refresh. We had the before and after where we could measure the QX score. So that was kind of a benchmark at the time that we released the brand refresh, and we continue to measure it. So it's obviously going to be influenced by other teams releasing something, but it also still gives us a measure of how the design system is performing as long as it's used.
I guess in our case, I think it has been mainly qualitative, or probably in everyone's case, that was the main method. But we usually participate in design reviews of the day-to-day experiences, and that's where we started to notice this increased inconsistency across projects. We noticed a decrease in back-to-back revisions, and we also started to get feedback about time saving and efficiency. And here and there, we also gather feedback in different channels, and sometimes we ask for it, but the team has been really good at giving us feedback organically. For quantitative metrics, we currently use straight up Figma analytics. We looked at the increase of projects using Vega. We see the growing user base. We compare the usage of Vega against our previous design system. And that's how we kind of know that we're on the right track. However, I acknowledge that Figma Analytics has its own limitations when it comes to measuring adoption. And I think that is a big area of opportunity, at least for us. And I don't know if everyone has had the chance to read Ravi's article on how Pinterest measures adoptions. If you haven't, I highly recommend. It is also nominated for best article, I think. But I read it, I shared it with our team, and we are already considering to apply some of those learnings into our team. And hopefully in the future, we can improve that, our quantitative methods.
And following this question about measurement, we are talking a lot about qualitative metrics, but there's still a question from Gerard about if there are any user-centric metrics that you've been able to capture that correlate with adoption. For example, teams that adopted this design system increase their time by market by, I don't know, X%. Is it something that you've been able to evaluate or to consider, or maybe some, quantitative data, or not? It's possible not. I think it's also an answer.
I know that the product managers and there are not in the core team. We do not do anything like that at the moment, to be honest. The researchers have that on their table and they're struggling for it, but I don't have any clear answers, to be honest.
I think there's so many unknowns there. I think the challenge with understanding how it impacts teams is like you would need to find two products of two projects of a similar size. you would need the team to actually be recording the time that they spend on it and on the specific parts. I think in theory it's possible, but I think in practice, if I were to go to a product team, be like, hey, can you track how much time you spend doing this? I'd be told to sling my hook because they want to get on with their work.
Yeah, it's so true, Sheena. I think the reality is you really can't measure that quite as much as you want to, but just gathering feedback about the way it's changed your workflow from designers and engineers, I think is the type of feedback you're looking for essentially, because it all depends, like Sheena mentioned, the size of the project, the number of people working on the project. It's all different. The number of iterations a team might go through to get to where you want to. But if you're hearing from the team that, yeah, I'm making decisions faster, it's helping me code and design faster, it's making my products more consistent or efficient, I think that's the type of feedback you're looking to hear.
Cool. We have another question now from Matthew, and it's about how do you manage design system adoption along the overall product growth, and how do you prioritize it, like when there is a new feature and you still have legacies, for example?
Yeah, I'll go through this, going through this right now, and probably will be for a long time. So we actually have some products that aren't using our design system. And the reason that is because we've just focused getting the design system to a place where it's working well, like it's a well-oiled machine. And we've really focused on getting it right on one side of our product suite. So I think as time progresses and we start using Bonfire in more places, we are rolling it out by feature, or maybe we decide to roll it out by component. Maybe it makes sense to swap out buttons everywhere we're using them for the new design component button. But at the moment, we're trying to do it feature by feature in areas that we aren't using design system holistically, is a way we're looking at it at the moment. But that could change at any point in time.
Essentially, what he's asking for is how to prioritize, I guess. Yeah, in our case, we started with the basic foundations, like the tokens again, and building from ground up, and that was how we started. But then component by component as well. So yeah, essentially that was our approach in that sense. I mean, yeah, that's my answer. Yeah,
I think it also will depend on the business need. So you have to work very closely with the product people and the business people. In our case, we have projects that have been adopting Vega incrementally. Like sometimes they just change one component and that's it, or they just change the buttons, and they launch that, and then the next quarter they will adopt something else. But we have other projects that adopted Vega from the beginning, like from scratch, like kind of like a redesign. So within the same company, you can have also these many approaches, and it will depend on your product teams and what your business teams prioritize. So we have to just keep our communication close with them.
Cool. Well, thanks for your answers. There's a question from Ryan. It's more about if you have any best practices or tips for encouraging creativity while not, breaking design system components and using atoms within the design system to create design tailored to use case.
I think I can speak from experience. I am mainly a visual designer, so I really like to experiment a lot. And I think my advice would be to keep things separated, like have all your system documents or your system design in place, because that is your space to the design teams and to the engineering teams, but also dedicate some space to play and to experiment, like have a different file for that, have collaborate working sessions to experiment. Um, Even if those experiments don't make it to the end result, at least you feel that uh, you accomplish that experiment and it didn't just stay in your head, uh, or you feel that you cannot do anything fun or creative. Like there should be a space for that, but it should be in parallel with all of your design system things.
Yeah. I can say something about that as well. I mean that I think that's one of the problems with we are working on a centralized model as well. I mean, it is problematic to have small hackathons or do like creative stuff in that sense, because everything is pretty organized and overlooked by the things. But I mean, to invite people to start doing their own things and have regular sync ups where you conduct when you have walkthroughs and go through different designs and stuff like that. I mean, icebreakers and then have small hackathons on specific tasks is a great thing that we have tried and got some great results of that as well. And this is again something that encourage team building and stuff like that. But in the end, it usually generates a lot of cool new features and new stuff as well. You can do that with principles. You can do that with components. You can do that with whatever. That's my experience.
And we also have a question from Seb, and it's more about how do you what happens if you have multiple design systems? How you can manage that. Seb is explaining that they have a very big tool with a lot of functionalities, and so now they need to have multiple design systems. So I guess the question is how you manage having multiple design system. And I mean, if we relate that to the adoption topic, how difficult or how have you any best practices or tips to manage the adoption of your design system when you have multiple design systems?
We only have one design system, but I mean, to be honest, we have been discussing if we should break it apart and maybe do separate things. But I mean, the UX designers, they need something that mirrors the live application more, so that they can prototype and do stuff like that. But the stakeholders have something. I mean, we always have to consider that we are a really small team, so we have to think about that. So we didn't have the manpower to do something like that. But to be the optimal thing would be to have maybe like two separate, one that is striving for a brand new look and something like that, if you're just thinking about the UI, and some that is more conservative and are working closely with the designers and are working with flows and such stuff like that. Because I think sometimes it can be problematic, at least for us, to fill the needs for the stakeholders that wants that brand new fresh stuff, and designers maybe are more focusing on consistency. In our case, we are still on that consistency route. We don't have the possibility to drive two systems at the same time. It's too big of a job. But maybe in the future we can. I would love to.
So we've got within design systems, we've got product design systems and we've got brand design systems. So product design systems is focused on what happens within the product that our customers see, and then brand is more related to kind of how we present ourselves outwards. The two teams work fairly closely together. They share a lot of rituals and especially things around planning. So I think like everything to do with design systems, it is about collaborating and communication. And I think it'll depend on what your design system's for. If that kind of split is not clear, I think like the first thing you need to do is define which system is looking after which spaces, so that you can make sure that you're kind of owning the spaces that you should, but then deciding what commonalities you have, because obviously things like the colors that you use are not going to vary across systems. That's something that is generally going to be at least around the same framework. So figure out, who owns what and what you have that are commonalities between the two systems, and move from there. And after that, I think it's all about communication.
Agree with both points too. Talk to your team members, figure out what makes sense. If it is having multiple design systems because the solutions are so unique and there's not a lot of shared components or styles, then it probably makes sense to have 2 or more. But maybe as a first step, try to see if there is any shared components across these solutions or products. Maybe it's fonts, maybe it's color, and start with those as some base values, and then maybe that can be a joint design system, and then from there you branch out into multiple. But definitely talk amongst your team members and find out what makes sense, and see if the effort's worth the reward for sure.
All right. We have another question from Armand, a more technical one about design tokens, who's asking, for those of you who are using tokens, how did you implement design tokens in the front end? Did you use Tailwind classes or CSS variables, custom components? And if your design system support multiple themes like dark mode or things like that, leveraging tokens,
Yeah, from my perspective, design tokens, we've been trying to implement from the beginning. We were trying to implement something called Fig Magic. It's essentially a thing that we can use Figma as the tool for pushing out updates with the design tokens to our Angular components. I wouldn't answer anything about the front end. This is not on my table, but design tokens and the theming when it comes to color has been a big thing for us as well. We started working with the light theme, and that's been something we've been trying to get to, like the VKG AA contrast ratio on most of our components. And we've been sort of doing the dark theme on the side, more or less, but it's something that we focus on as well. It is challenge to handle two separate themes at the same time, at least from us when it comes to manpower and such. I'm not sure if I can answer that front end question, but try to focus on one theme first of all, and then level out the dark tones afterwards, and you get that for free, more or less.
So I'll jump back on that token question. The token is definitely the hardest part of creating a design system, but it does save some rework later, or just provides flexibility, I guess maybe is a better way to say it. But front-end purposes, if you can define tokens for, say, colors to even start as an example, if you define a token to the color gray, if that's the color you're using in your design system, you can use that gray and that token across some buttons, some input fields, some text, and that gray can just be a color that you can slightly tweak over time and adjust that token, and then it'll cascade to everything that you're using that gray. So I guess just defining which tokens and where you want to use them is probably just like some front-end advice without getting too technical.
Yeah, that's a good advice, to be honest. Yeah, semantically name tokens, exactly. Name them as they're supposed to be used. That's exactly what we're doing as well. So yeah, maybe that was the question. Thanks.
And following this topic about tokens, I think there's a question maybe for you, Ben. It's a question from Mark. Did you find all designers were comfortable with the use of Token Studio?
It's definitely a joint effort between design and engineering. We were all pretty junior too when it came to tokens. We had to do a lot of upfront courses and classes to really understand how to use them. We went back and forth on how we would name them and what would be like a commonality that we could both agree on to name tokens in the future once we had like a base set. So it all comes down to collaboration and communication essentially, and just making sure that engineers and designers are on the same page when creating this set of tokens.
Okay, cool. We have a few minutes left, and there's maybe one question that we maybe haven't really covered that Baz is asking. It's how many full-time people run each of your respective design system, and what are the role and profession in your design system team. And I think I would like also to add to this question to have maybe a better overview about each of your design system, maybe the type of governance that you picked. Is it a centralized one, a federated one, a hybrid, or something else?
I can start. We are working. We are a centralized team at the moment, but we are. Yeah, we're really looking into something else maybe later on. We are a really small team. We are 20 or something like that in the design system team. But the really core team is working with full time. It's only about 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
Depending, yeah. So a small team.
And what are the roles of the people working on this design system team?
No, we have one product manager, and then we have one UX designer, and we sort of uses. Yeah, that's what we do. We have two UX designers. That's the roles.
All right. Sheena, you want to answer next?
Sure, yeah. So we have got a centralized system at the moment, and much like Johan, we are looking to maybe move towards a bit more of a hybrid model. And we had been a bit hybrid model before we kind of led to the push into the rebrand. So it made more sense for us to put our heads down, focus, and be centralized. And now that we're kind of come out the other side and we're all still here, thinking about like how we make it more hybrid and how we build on how people contribute to it. We have got, I want to say 22 people in the design system. So there's me, we've got a researcher, our designers are divided between brand system and product system. So I think I want to say 6 designers. Sorry, I don't keep track. And then we have iOS web and Android engineers. That's us.
Cool. Brenda, you want to flow?
We are a pretty small team. In the design team, at least, we have product designers. I am a visual designer. We have a motion designer and a content strategist. That is like a team of 5 people, I believe, 5, 6 people. Sometimes designers from other teams will come and help us if we need to. But that is the design team. There's a separate engineering team dedicated to build the component library. I'm not sure how many engineers are in that team, but there's a lot of engineers. That's it. We have a centralized model as well. That felt really appropriate at the beginning, especially as a small team and how we started. But we also we have some shared library where we do collaborations and build components that are not officially part of the design system. And we work with other product designers as well. So yeah, we are a small team. We have big support.
Great. Ben?
Yeah, our design system team started pretty centralized in the early going. That consisted of like a product manager, designer or 2, and then several engineers to really get the design system started into where it is today. But we've migrated a little bit more towards a federated model now, where we do welcome contributors to provide feedback or propose new components, or even just give feedback on how they're using it day to day, and just offer up new ways of doing things, new processes, new ways of documenting. So we're really taking it from a group approach now with all of our product teams.
Awesome. Well, I think we're done. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar, and thank you for all of your questions. And most of all, thank you to all our speakers for joining this webinar and answering all these questions about adoption. I hope it was helpful for many of you, and that you found some answer inspiring and useful for your own design system. Yeah, make sure to take the survey about our How We Document survey. The link is at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, we'll see very soon the results of this Design System Awards competition. It's very exciting, and yeah, we'll let you know. Thank you all again for attending this webinar, and yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Same. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.